Hello, welcome to the Myth-Busting Neurodiverse Relationships podcast. I'm Natalie Roberts and I'm here with my co-host Heather Parks. We've both been in our neurodiverse relationships and families for more than 25 years. We met 10 years ago when we were feeling really desperate and trying to solve a lot of issues in our relationship and our families. We've been journeying since then. We've found many more positive and hopeful ways to solve, resolve, repair, reconnect in those relationships and in our families, in our lives. And we now co-host also Loving Difference online, giving hope and a way forward for neurodiverse relationships. In this podcast, though, we're busting the myths about neurodiverse relationships, which we had when we started this journey, that we've realised aren't true, and that actually were preventing us from recovering and having the relationships with our partners and children that we wanted. So we want to dispel these myths and bring you hope that absolutely things can change. So whether you're out and about or comfy with a cuppa, let's dive into our next conversation. See you there.
Hello, Natalie here from Loving Difference. Welcome back to another conversation. Heather and I today are talking about the kind of support we found early on in our neurodiverse relationship journey and what it is about Loving Difference that we feel is different to other forms of support we access, particularly in the beginning. One of the things I noticed was that I joined a lot of groups, Facebook groups in particular at the time, and they were really helpful for a while, really validating, really helpful to connect with other people in the same situation. It was invaluable, in fact. What I did start to find, though, at times was that they could tend to be quite negative, particularly about our partners. And I got to a point with some of them where I actually had to leave because I wanted to move forward and often didn't feel that those groups offered me the tools or the vibe or even the atmosphere to be able to do that. So that's one of the reasons, I guess, we've set up Loving Difference, is our recognition of the kind of support, the kind of professional and peer support that's been useful. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's dive in. Hello again. And so today we thought we would get on and have a conversation about why we set up Loving Difference, but specifically around how it's different from other ways of accessing support in your neurodiverse relationship. Both of us accessed different things over the last 7 years or so, and what's different about what we're doing in Loving Difference. So that's kind of the premise for today's chat.
Yes, that sounds good.
Yes. So what did we access to begin with? Maybe it's helpful to just think back and think what we accessed to begin with. For me, I was accessing some support groups, either online, primarily online. I was just searching and finding support groups, which was really validating, really helpful to speak to people or be in touch with people online who were in exactly the same situation as me. And it really validated my experience and how I was feeling and a lot of the specific difficulties that I was encountering, with some degree of advice, I suppose, about maybe how to deal with some of those things. So certainly in the beginning, I was trying some of the things that were in those support groups. And then I also went to a counsellor. So I spent some time with a counsellor as well, focused particularly on my well-being and looking at myself. And also, again, some strategies and things. I made sure I was seeing somebody that had understanding or knowledge of autism and neurodiversity. It wasn't necessarily lived experience, but they did have knowledge of it. So, which is really important. What about you, Heather? What were you accessing in the beginning?
So I think my very first step was to go to a workshop that was specifically for partners in neurodivergent relationships, and that's where I met primarily my support group, which was you guys. So we had our own support group, and we met regularly, and we had our own WhatsApp group, and that was a really helpful experience, just to be with people who just got what we were saying and didn't sort of you know, with other friends, I'd found it that it'd been a bit like kind of, you know, well, aren't all people like that? You know, it's like it wasn't very validating. And I know for the first time I was with people who really knew what it felt like to be in this relationship and understood some of the frustrations and difficulties that I was having. I was also lucky in my area in that I was able to access counselling for carers. Because I had neurodivergent children as well who had struggles, and I was actually registered as a carer, which meant I could access highly subsidised counselling. And I find that really useful for a short period of time. And then what happened to me is I kind of felt like I'd said all I needed to say, and the situation was the situation. And I suddenly, I just thought, well, it felt really cathartic at first to go along, and there was lots of tears, and there was lots of, you know,
really helpful, really important
really,
stage, I think, isn't it? That
she really listened and gave me space and time out of the situation to just talk through some of the stuff that
and
was
believed what you were saying. Really believe, really got it. Really important.
So I think I was really fortunate as well that I had that, you know, access. And then I kind of, you know, wanted to move forward, I think. And then it was kind of that recognition, okay, and now what? And now what's next?
It still felt like, I think for me, it still felt like I was on a bit of the hamster wheel, certainly in terms of the relationship, it's still on the hamster wheel, the same stuff, the same issues going sort of round and round. And I definitely had tried some of the strategies, things in the books, video. I tried things that were, you know, that potentially were going to make things better or improve them at least. I was at the time, certainly my partner was not interested in making any changes. So that's I think why I continue to feel quite stuck. When it's very often it's just one of you that's really not wanting to, only one of you wants to change things, and the other potentially doesn't, is very resistant
or has the capacity or whatever it is. And I certainly felt that I was turning up at events and things with friends and just repeating myself. I was actually boring myself. I was getting to the point where I thought nobody's going to want to listen to me anymore, no one's going to want me around. And then I actually started avoiding going out, so the very thing I needed was missing. And I started recognizing really the signs of depression there. And because I was kind of
you're kind of recycling all the same stuff, aren't you? It's like you don't it's almost not processed, it's just keep going round and round. It doesn't move forward, it doesn't come out and actually morph or transform into anything else. You are, like you say, just saying the same things and hoping for something else to happen. So loving difference is different to that. It is different. It's there is support and there is professional support as well. So there is that combination of mutual support and professional support that we've just described. And it's very different as well, isn't it? And we wanted to sort of describe that a bit more for you so that you would know what was going to be different about it.
I think what we're looking for is all of the above. It is about validating, it is about coming into a space and getting that understanding and shared experience from other people. And it's really important for us that we are offering tools and tips and ideas and a philosophy around shifting and moving forward and rediscovering ourselves and just empowering. I think it's something about finding agency again, isn't it? And all of that kind of thing. I think that's agency. Really important.
When we were talking this morning, we sort of came to that as well, that's one of the things we felt with all that just going around and regurgitating and noticing I'm still saying the same things, I'm still feeling all the same things. For me, it was still confused, still very resentful, still very frustrated. Those feelings just didn't seem to shift. So in Loving Difference, we are using coaching, which is using questions that are designed to give you new perspectives. I think that's one of the key things, is that offering new perspectives than you've already had, so that you can make new decisions and try new things
that we know can really work for you, and doing that in a supportive
and really compassionate way, because we know it needs to be really small. We know it's hard. You know, we have been there. You know, we do know, and we're still, you know, we are still living.
We're still doing our own work too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we're still finding our way and navigating the next levels of things that we want to explore with ourselves, and be able to do that together. So the difference is it's a forward moving, it's and
expect questions. Expect questions.
It can be challenging, but that's the way that you begin to have a different experience. It's the way you get off the hamster wheel. It's the way you sort of switch the programming in the washing machine.
Edges. We're going to help you find your edges, and we're going to help you really gently grow those boundaries of safety. You know, this isn't, you know, we do this really gently and compassionately, but there is a forward momentum, and we really think that makes a difference.
An element of challenge. You know, I you know, when I'm doing one-to-one coaching with people, one of the phrases that is described sometimes, people would describe it is I sort of always dare not say it, but they do say it's quite brutal but liberating. And I think they always say though that it's gently brutal, and I don't know if that almost feels like it can't go together, but we needed that too though, didn't we? We needed 4 hours perspectives or something to change within us, give us that agency back, empower us, and then support each other to do what feels really often very scary. So to that extent it can feel like we are it might I don't know, pushing, but it's not really pushing, it's encouraging, inviting, expanding, so in a safe way, so you feel free, you feel liberated, you feel like you have agency, feel like you feel like you can make choices.
I like to interrupt.
We're terrible at interrupting.
It's understanding where we can have choice again, and how that recognizing that we're making choices can really shift things like resentment and some of those negative patterns that we get into. And
if this episode has resonated with you, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching to get notifications of future episodes. To dive deeper into all of this, with professional coaching, resources, and all the support you need, join us in Loving Difference via www.lovingdifference.net. And we'll be back here soon.